guys, and welcome to your weekly horoscope for Monday the 7th of December, going through until Sunday the 13th of December 2020. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be able to do this weekly horoscope for you. I've had a look and I've noticed a huge Neptune influence that's with us all week long. So Neptune is the water planet. It rules Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac, and that's really interested in the unmanifest, in looking at the future, manifesting what it is you want, spirituality. Neptune in itself is concerned with love and romance, both on a personal level and on a global level. Your dreams, your intuition, psychic ability, what could be. And in a practical sense, Neptune often makes it quite difficult for you to navigate your own path because it becomes a little bit hazy and fuzzy, and it's difficult to kind of suss out what's right and what's not right. So if people are challenging you and pointing out cracks all the time, you're not going to be such a huge fan of that. And also, with that said, taking personal responsibility and being accountable for what you're doing isn't going to be your favorite thing. So it's not quite Christmas yet as far as goodwill towards everybody and being a humanitarian and seeing the best in everyone and everything. That's not really quite there yet. So we've got quite a challenging week ahead where you're really seeing your point of view first and foremost, and other people's point of view are kind of optional and you're not that interested in those. Okay, so be a little bit careful with that energy. It can sometimes get you into trouble. On Monday, the 7th of December, we've got the moon in Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. It's interested in making sense of things. So it sorts the good from the bad. And because it's earthy, it's interested in practical things that you can measure and touch and feel. That opposes Neptune in Pisces. So on Monday, the energy of Neptune is going to be somewhat mitigated by this moon because you're more interested in what is in the here and now than what could be. We also have the moon then forming squares, so there's friction between the moon and the sun and Mercury, which are in Sagittarius. The sun is the center of our solar system. It represents your identity and what really makes you feel alive and empowered. And Mercury is the communication planet. It's responsible for the way you articulate yourself and the way you perceive things. With them being in Sagittarius, that really gives you a huge focus on moving forward on your own journey. So we do have Neptune somewhat weakened by the moon here on Monday, but still it may be difficult even on Monday here, sorting out the good from the bad and really being certain. So there's this weird kind of floaty feeling of self-doubt, which is there on Monday, which gets stronger as the week progresses. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. A lot of people like to know exactly that they feel right and they're certain about certain things. And if that doesn't happen, it can become a little bit difficult and people can get irritable and restless. So just be aware of that. And then also we've got the Virgo moon forming a trine with Uranus, the planet of the unexpected and the eccentric and the miraculous, and that's in Taurus. So practical things could suddenly appear where you didn't expect them to. So you start the week with this huge sense of optimism, and the actions you take as a result of that could bring you unexpected results, but they're likely to be positive because Uranus is in Taurus and you do have some control of what's going on. You're not going to be much into nonsensical delusion or, fabricated stories. Facts are important to you. And with all of that, you may come across as a little bit of lacking in empathy. If you just wave things aside because you think they're nonsensical, other people may be a little bit taken aback by that. Also, watch out that you don't become overly critical. The Virgo moon can do that. If you see a flaw, you may want to point it out. And if you think about how you usually react to that, it's usually not welcome. Other people certainly aren't going to welcome that from you. It's like, oh, thank you, all my plans are just rubbish and I should throw them out and start all over. Thanks, I really appreciate that. What's actually coming to mind with the whole delusion thing, I read a story in the paper the other day. It's so funny. A local woman, where I live near Bristol in England, and there's a local woman who ended her engagement with a ghost. She ended it because she met this ghost in Australia on holiday, and after a while she realized that the ghost was partying too much and it wasn't social distancing. So she had to end the relationship. Okay, so that's kind of funny, but if you have someone in your life who is really serious about that kind of thing, it's like, do you know what? My ghost boyfriend started wearing a man bun, so I had to get rid of him. You may laugh, but you may also feel the need to educate that person and say, do you know what, no offense, you can date whoever you want if you're into ghosts, that's great, but I just don't think that's very practical. That person isn't going to appreciate it, whether you're right or not right. It's their thing, they're really invested in it, and if you try and make them see the light, they're like, who are you? Who are you to educate me? What about your boyfriends? They haven't been that great either. Okay, moving on to Tuesday the 8th. Oh, and also there was another story. Sorry, I'm getting off track here. But there was a guy who married a sex doll. And he did a whole photo shoot with the sex doll. And it's a Kazakhstani bodybuilder. And they did this whole photo shoot and interview. And it's just unbelievable. Imagine telling him that, I don't think this relationship is gonna work out. Crazy. Okay. Tuesday the 8th of December, we've got the moon we've still got the moon in Virgo, and it now sextiles, so it forms a harmonious relationship to Venus, the planet of love and beauty, in Scorpio. Venus in Scorpio is really intense. It really goes to the very heart of what you're feeling. Nothing is kind of superficial and laissez-faire and kind of whatever. It's really, really intense. So if you feel something, you're really going to feel it. And it also trines Pluto, the planet of transformation and change, Saturn, structure and security, and Jupiter, the lucky planet, all of which are in Capricorn. So lots of Earth now, so really, really focused on what is going on, but combined with your feelings and kind of explosive feelings, and they can really change things up for you in a real world sense. So on Tuesday, any kind of suppressed feelings that you have, or secret loves, or hidden resentments are going to come to the surface and out of your mouth without the usual kind of mind to mouth filter working, and it just all comes out. And we've all been there, and that can cause problems as well. So again, it's not your job to enlighten other people about what they're doing wrong and how they should behave. And again, with this energy, because you are focused on the self, and if you are engaged to, I don't know, a leprechaun, then someone coming along and saying, this isn't really very practical, I don't see how this is going to serve you in future, then that person isn't likely to take your opinion on board, and they're not likely to say, aha, thank you, because of you I've now seen the light. It's kind of pointless to express a truth or your truth if no one wants to hear it. If someone does come to you asking advice and saying, hey, what do you think about what I'm doing? Then that's a whole other story, because they're showing willingness. So unsolicited advice, not a good look on Tuesday the 8th, and it's just going to come back and bite you. So save your breath and save your amazing insights, because, save them for people who actually want to hear them. On Wednesday the 9th of December, we've got the moon going into Libra at 2 minutes past midnight. So if you're in a different time zone, I use UK time, then obviously it might be, if you're in the States, it might be late, it will be late on Tuesday night. If you're elsewhere, it'll be like 2, 3, 5 in the morning. The moon in Libra is much more focused on balance. It's an air sign, so thinking becomes more important. The Libra moon then opposes Chiron in Aries, the asteroid that's known as the wounded healer. It sextiles the communication planet Mercury and the Sun, both of which are still in Sagittarius. So we've got lots of fire and air coming into the chart now, and things really speed up. The Sun in Sagittarius also squares Neptune in Pisces, so there's friction between the sense of I can do anything, I'm super optimistic, nothing will hold me back. And then Neptune in Pisces, kind of hermit energy, saying contemplate and think and dream and what could be. So with that change in elements, the energy kind of flips around on Wednesday the 9th. And now you're the one living in the bubble. You're not overly interested in taking accountability or really being held to task about anything. Dreams and plans for the future are what's on your agenda, and that's what you're interested in, and it's really about the self. So allow yourself to dream, and if you find it difficult to say no to people who are really, really critical in your life, and not critical for a good reason, constructive criticism, But people who just kind of hammer you, you're really going to be able to say no thanks to that. And especially if you struggle to assert yourself in those kind of situations, you're going to find Wednesday really easy. Also, don't believe everything you hear. Because we've got this Neptune energy floating around, people may get the wrong end of the stick and they may repeat things in a way that's different to how it was said. Don't focus on every little detail and hold people to task about, hey, this is what you said. So it's much easier to kind of let things slide, and it's going to be much easier for you emotionally if you don't invest in every little word and every detail. On Thursday the 10th, we've got the Libra moon opposing Mars in Aries. So we've got the masculine planet of drive and ambition in the sign that it rules. So Mars is really happy, and that gives you an energy boost. Also, fire and air work really well together. They're both masculine elements, and they really kind of stoke each other up. They build each other up and amplify the energy. It sextiles the sun in Sagittarius, so more fire. And the sun in Sagittarius is really happy. It rules Leo, but Sagittarius is fire, so is Aries. So those three really like the sun, and vice versa. The moon also squares the lucky planet Jupiter, Pluto, Hades in mythology, and Saturn, all in the earth sign of Capricorn. So there's big change, or the potential for huge changes which really affect you positively. Venus in Scorpio still amplifies your feelings, and that sextiles Pluto and Capricorn. And that's kind of explosive, because if you really give major importance to your feelings, and if you express every single one of them, it can really change your circumstances dramatically. Pluto can be like the Tower is in the tarot. Finally, on Thursday, we've got the Sagittarius sun forming a trine with Mars in Aries. So this is a lovely combo at the end of the year here, which really lights a fire in you and gets you going. So on Thursday, you move further down this rabbit hole of I am in a bubble and my reality is the only reality. So woe unto those who decide that they have something to say about you which is inaccurate, or people who do criticize you without merit. You're really going to find it difficult to tolerate. So if you're someone who's kind of verbally aggressive, and if you enjoy kind of verbal fights, then watch out for Thursday, because you'll have a lot of material to work on. And again, it's much easier to let these things slide. I mean, if you take everybody who's hurt you in your life, people who've wronged you, and you decide to hold them accountable and to tell them how much you've suffered because of them and how much you disagree with the way they've behaved, in my experience, not only is that not cathartic, because getting that out, you may think, okay, I'm just going to dump it on this other person, I'll feel better for it. Usually it just increases the negativity. It's unlikely that the other person will see your point of view, especially if you're in a mode of I'm right and you're wrong, because it can come across as holier than thou, and no one likes being preached to. If you're under the illusion that that's going to really free you and liberate you, it isn't. Also, by saying these things, it's not good for any kind of relationship or friendship, because the other person will say, oh wow, there's a lot of venom and resentment coming at me. Is this really a friendship? Regardless of how they behaved. So you see, the onus really goes away from them immediately, and they put it back on you. So if you're someone who really wants to explain your part, and you've got the kind of friendship where you go over every little detail, and it does work, it has worked in the past, then maybe. But if you're just wanting to let someone have it, and you're thinking that this is going to help you feel better and it's going to improve your relationship and bring it back to where it was, no, it's not, especially on Thursday. So if you decide to do that, it could backfire on you, and it could alienate an ally. And an ally who happens to say the wrong thing in the moment. You know, not all of us always get things right, and we don't always repeat things exactly verbatim as they were said. So you may feel justified in a personal attack on someone else, but what you put out, you get back. And if I decided that I was going to, let's just say I had people that hurt me, who hurt me, yikes. People who hurt me, and I decided to go on this channel and say, I want to hold these people accountable for what they've done to me. It wouldn't help me. First of all, it would make me look bad. And second, it would just encourage other people to retaliate. I mean, that's how it works. So unfortunately, unless you're in school or you're asking someone for help, most people aren't teachable or aren't willing to hear what you've got to say. And you can save yourself the breath and the time and the energy. Also, it's likely that your delivery may be a little bit too much, like, and that's something you may come to regret later on. So again, save yourself the regret and don't even go there. How do you deal with things like that? I don't know if my way is appropriate, but if people really hurt me, I tend to believe what's happened. And what's that saying? If someone shows you who they are, believe them. And I tend to distance myself rather than getting into it. I think initially trying to fix things, if there's a misunderstanding in a relationship, then you can try and talk it out. But if after those kind of peace talks things are still not right, then you don't have that many options. So the one thing to avoid is really to, let it rip and really take someone down. It's not going to serve you. And also it comes from a really sensitive inner place. You're not trying to hurt anyone, you're trying to be understood or seen accurately. And with all this Neptune stuff, you may not see things accurately. And even though you feel hurt, you may have totally forgot about your part in the whole situation and you may have lashed out first. So just bear that in mind. Moving on to Friday the 11th, the moon goes into Scorpio, 2 in the morning. So the moon in Scorpio joins Venus in Scorpio, and now we're really, really feeling things intensely. And Scorpio exists in the dark and in the light. So you will feel the negative stuff really powerfully. You'll feel this good stuff really powerfully. So it's kind of extreme black and white thinking, which we all have to avoid at times because life isn't black and white, it's usually gray. The Scorpio moon then opposes Uranus in Taurus. So again, your feelings could lead to major explosive events taking place. It trines Neptune in Pisces. So your feelings and the version of events that you're holding dear to your heart or clinging on to is your version of events. It may not be true at all. It may be a total fantasy. I remember at 15, I had the best relationship of my life. I was madly in love. And it was just all wonderful. But what kind of sucked about the whole thing was that he didn't even barely know I existed. So it wasn't much of a relationship, but as far as I was concerned, it was fabulous. So the Scorpio moon forms our trine with Neptune, but it also quincunxes Chiron in Aries. So really just wearing your heart on your sleeve and seeing your experience as the only way to see that experience may hurt your feelings and may cause you to get hurt. Sag Sun still continues to trine Mars in Aries. So that personal sense of drive and focus on the future and what you can get done is really, really strong. So try and channel your feelings into practicals, into actuals, real things that you can plan and do, rather than giving all this life to your feelings, especially the most negative ones. So Friday, you may regret some of the things that you did from the day before, Thursday, but you'll find it really easy to justify any wrongdoing. Nothing to do with me. Oh, I said your dress was hideous. Oh, it's your fault if you take that as true. It's just my opinion. No. So it's altogether, looking at this, it's an interesting week. The one thing it will help with is if you're someone who cannot stand up for yourself or you find it very difficult and challenging. Thursday and Friday are going to be good times to actually practice that and stand in your own power and say what you feel. It'll be a surprise to you and to other people. And what's going to be surprising to you is the intensity of how this all comes out. So you may, dredge up things from 10 years ago that you're still angry about, and other people are like, what's going on? You've been sitting on this for 10 years, really? So again, it's not something that's going to be received. Oh yes, 10 years ago, I really said the wrong thing. No, it's going to be like, you've been carrying this around for 10 years. What is wrong with you? And that just puts you in a bad position again. So on Friday, if you want to keep the peace, make a real effort to put yourself in other people's shoes and try and see the circumstances or what has happened from their perspective as well, because that's the last place you're likely to go. On Saturday, the 12th of December, the moon is still in Scorpio, and now it conjuncts Venus in Scorpio. So those two sit together. So the way you feel and what makes you feel at home can relax in Scorpio, and Venus, love, kind of seething at a really high temperature here, steaming away. It's really, really intense. It's too much of a good thing. It also trines Neptune in Pisces. So we've got the moon in water, Venus in water, Scorpio, and Neptune in water, Neptune being the water planet in the water sign of Pisces. So there's a lot of emotional stuff going on. On the plus side, your intuition is going to be through the roof. So if you get information about other people, especially strangers or circumstances, you just get a feeling, then really trust that, because with this much water, you can really trust your gut. Those things sextile, well, no, not all of them. The moon in Scorpio sextiles Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn, all of which are in Capricorn. By the way, we've got a great conjunction happening. It only happens once every 20 years when Jupiter and Saturn meet. And it really tests us when this happens. I mean, we've had 2020, which has been a challenge, so it kind of came early. Last time it happened was 2001, and we had 9/11 take place. Then it was in 81, and we had the birth of HIV/AIDS. So it's something that really that tests the structure of human beings on this planet. And afterwards, hindsight is 2020 as always, and people start to learn from it and adjust. But when these things hit every 20 years, it's a major thing. I think I'll make a separate video on that. So check the channel over the next couple of days. I'll have a look at that, see if I can do a video, because it is like a once in a 20-year event, so it is quite a big thing. So with this energy on Saturday, you may experience an emotional kind of flare up, because things are so intense, it may come to a boiling point, and it's like boom. So it can be really, really intense and over the top. You may fall in love at first sight and run off with some fantasy that has nothing to do with reality, like I did at 15. Or you may just you may see something from your perspective, and you may, like when someone does something to annoy you, and then you sit there and you ruminate on it, and it's like, well, they didn't empty the bin last week either, and I asked them to do that. And then also they were mean to me 6 years ago. So don't let things kind of compile and build and build and build until you're really furious. Just don't conflate everything. Deal with things as they come along. Other than the misperception, the way you respond to these things, which is going to be excessive, may then really cause you pain and disappointment. So if someone just says something silly in passing and you take it as the biggest insult you've ever heard and you let them have it, it may be like, oh, I just misunderstood, sorry. Definitely think before you leap, and try not to commit to anything long term. Because if someone says, hey, I think we should open our own merch company and we should make t-shirts and do it, and you're like, oh yeah, great, let's do that. And you're talking like at a social thing or over Zoom, and it seems great in the moment. And then you start to get forms and forms and forms, legal things about the merchandise company, and you're like, why did I get myself into this? You know, your feelings, you're likely to bite off more than you can chew on an emotional level. So try and keep things balanced and even. Sunday the 13th of December, we've got the moon going into Sagittarius at 2:40 in the morning. So now we've got more fire, more heat. The Sagittarius moon then trines Chiron in Aries. So you may gallop off into fantasy land again. That may not serve you. And it quincunxes Uranus and Taurus, so missteps may have real consequences. Mercury in Sagittarius, real optimism still, and I can. What? The little toaster who could? Or is it the little train who could? Anyway, major optimism, a huge sense of self. I can do whatever comes to mind, so it's a little bit, it's overconfidence to a certain degree. but it squares Neptune in Pisces. So with this confidence, plus the fantasy bubble, you may get the wrong end of the stick still. With all the fire though, you do become a little bit more connected to reality, and you may see things a little bit more clearly, although it's not as clear as you usually would be. So again, if you've got major judgments, or if you decide this is the only way to do something, hold off on that. You may get it wrong still. If this week has been chaotic for you, instead of looking within and saying, maybe I overreacted, no, you're still just going to say, I'm not responsible, and you may feel this instant need to blame other people or your circumstances for anything that has gone wrong. And in my experience, we always play a part in everything. That's what I really didn't like when I was doing the 12 steps of recovery. Step 4 is taking this personal inventory, and you make lists. What I did with my sponsor is we made different lists about resentments and fears and harm we had caused other people. And what was really an eye-opener to me is that in each situation, whether I was to blame or not, there was a certain part that I did play in those things. And that kind of evens the score a bit, because when you know that, okay, this was really difficult or unpleasant, but let's say I didn't cause it, but I did take certain actions that kind of make sense why this came about. It really puts it in perspective, and it makes it much easier to get over. Because when you just blame everyone else, it creates a major imbalance. I'm right, they're wrong. So even if you are right and they're wrong, it creates major distance between you and that person. And let's say you were both equally to blame, which is rare, but and you see it that way, then it doesn't create that distance, and also that seething, fiery judgment doesn't come alive, and you don't get on your high horse and say, oh, aren't you wrong? So, what is it? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? And going with happy this week is really going to serve you. Let things slide. If things don't make sense, if people are saying things that are uninformed or insulting or whatever, you don't need to fight that battle. You really don't. It's up to you. Again, looking at it on the flip side, on the other hand, you're not going to be too hard on yourself this week. And if things have gone wrong, and you usually blame yourself for everything excessively, then this is going to free you to actually continue making plans and to continue moving forward and using that Mercury, Sun in Sagittarius energy to move ahead. It's not going to hold you back the way it usually would. So make the most of that. And on Sunday, it does become easier to brush things aside without overanalyzing or getting into them. What doesn't help at the beginning of the week is the Virgo moon on Monday, Tuesday, because the Virgo moon can really get you focused on the minutiae, and it can really get you kind of going around in a circle saying, oh yeah, but this was wrong and this was wrong. And no, it's not going to help you. Let it go, as Elsa would say. It's going to make you much happier than being right and ticking all the boxes and saying, hello, thank you for coming to the lunch. Here's my list of complaints that I don't like about you. No one's going to be receptive to that, especially this week. So yeah, like I said, not quite Christmas yet, but anyway, it's a good time to make plans for the future and to stand in your own power and to assert yourself if that is something that you usually struggle with. If you're someone who just is all mouth all the time, then just kind of scale that down a little bit deliberately and try not to express every thought that pops in your head. And with the lack of filter on... When is the lack of filter? Let me look. I mentioned it earlier. There was one day where the mind-mouth filter isn't working that strongly. That day in particular, just be aware that you may need to exercise a little bit of self-control. Yeah. So it's a great week. I mean, you're certainly not going to be bored. and you're certainly going to be able to move things forward. So have a great time. If you'd like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. On the front page, click on book your reading to order your reading with me. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and share the video online. Have an amazing week, and I'll speak to you next week. All the best. Mwah.